2019, Debenhams collapsed into administration. By 2021, its last UK stores shut for good. This wasn't a small chain. Debenhams had spent decades as an anchor of British shopping, a place people bought everything from wedding outfits and school uniforms to perfumes, sofas, and household items. So how does a 242-year-old retail institution, once present on almost every major high street, end up worth more as a website and a logo than as a company? In this episode, we explore the rise and fall of Debenhams.
During the 20th century, Debenhams grew into one of Britain's largest and most influential department store chains. Early on, the company pursued growth by acquiring other retailers like Harvey Nichols in 1913 and the Drapery Trust in 1928. Through these moves, Debenhams assembled a nationwide presence, becoming the largest department store chain in the UK by number of outlets.
By the mid-20th century, Debenhams was a familiar anchor of British high streets. The chain operated dozens of stores and had a strong market position in categories like apparel, cosmetics, and homewares. It was known for providing middle-class shoppers with a wide range of goods at mid-market prices. A key strength for Debenhams during its peak was its exclusive branding partnerships. In the 1990s and 2000s, Debenhams pioneered the Designers at Debenhams concept, which brought high-profile fashion designers into the store with diffusion lines at affordable prices. This strategy proved popular and was envied on the high street, giving Debenhams a competitive edge in fashion during the 1990s to 2000s. The chain also hosted numerous concessions and a thriving cosmetics hall, making its stores one-stop shops for many shoppers. By the 2000s, Debenhams had an international footprint through franchise stores and subsidiaries across Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. At one point, Debenhams operated over 200 stores across 18 countries. This global presence, along with annual UK sales that consistently placed it among Britain's top retailers, underscored Debenhams' dominant position. At its peak, Debenhams was not just large in store count, but also a major player in UK retail by revenue. By the late 1990s, it had annual sales above £1.3 billion, placing it among the nation's top 5 retailers. It commanded a significant share of the department store market, competing directly with House of Fraser and carving out a middle-market niche distinct from the luxury department stores and discount retailers. Debenhams' broad customer base and its widespread store network were key competitive advantages during its dominant years. Despite its long success, Debenhams entered a prolonged decline in the 21st century, caused by a combination of strategic missteps, changing consumer habits, and external pressures. One pivotal moment often cited in its downfall was the 2003 private equity buyout. In that year, Debenhams was taken over through a £1.9 billion leveraged buyout deal by the Baroness Retail Limited, a consortium that included CVC Capital Partners, Texas Pacific Group, Merrill Lynch Private Equity, and members of Debenhams' own management. The buyout saddled Debenhams with heavy debt that hampered Debenhams' ability to invest in modernisation just as retail was entering a digital revolution. By the 2010s, the rise of e-commerce and shifts in consumer behaviour hit Debenhams hard. Customers increasingly shopped online for fashion and home goods, favouring the convenience and endless assortment of online specialists. Debenhams did launch its own website and online store, but it struggled to compete in user experience and breadth of offering, with pure-play online rivals like ASOS. Moreover, demographics and preferences were changing. Younger consumers sought fast fashion brands, while many shoppers of all ages began preferring experiences over things, allocating more budget to travel and dining than to apparel. The mid-2010s also saw a squeeze on UK consumer spending power as post-Brexit inflation outpaced wage growth, reducing disposable incomes and making value for money more crucial. These trends left middle-tier retailers like Debenhams in a tough spot. Debenhams also faced fierce competition on multiple fronts. On the value end, chains like Primark and TK Maxx siphoned off bargain hunters. At the higher end, John Lewis continued to attract loyal customers with its strong service ethos and online investment. Marks & Spencer, while struggling in its clothing division, remained a huge draw for food and basics and was reforming its store portfolio. Specialty fashion chains and the growth of fast fashion brands like Zara and H&M meant that Debenhams' traditionally broad assortment lost its edge. Internally, Debenhams made several strategic missteps that accelerated its decline. After its period under private equity ownership, management focused on short-term cost-cutting and cash extraction rather than bold investment. For example, management often paid high dividends rather than invest in technology. The chain also continued to open some new stores, even as signs pointed toward overcapacity. The continued expansion to up to 165 UK stores left Debenhams with more retail space than the market could support. Many stores were large and on costly high streets where footfall was diminishing. While the company's online store generated sales, it did not grow fast enough to offset declining in-store revenue. The financial distress ultimately became evident in the chain's financial results. In 2018, Debenhams announced the largest loss in its history, a £491 million pre-tax loss for the year, alongside a plan to shutter up to 50 stores and cut thousands of jobs. By early 2019, its market value had plummeted and credit insurers were jittery about its suppliers. In April 2019, Debenhams fell into administration, the first time in its 241-year history. Although it emerged from the 2019 administration under new leadership and outlined a turnaround plan involving cost cuts and store closures, any hope of a steady recovery was short-lived. In 2020, the global COVID-19 pandemic struck, forcing retail stores to shut for extended periods. The lockdowns were devastating for a department store chain already in fragile condition. Debenhams' revenue plunged during the lockdowns, and it was forced to enter administration for the second time in April 2020. In December 2020, Debenhams' administrators announced they would begin winding down the business and liquidating. After 242 years of trading, the chain held fire sales through early 2021 to clear stock. By the spring of 2021, the end had arrived. All remaining 124 UK Debenhams stores closed their doors for the final time by the 15th of May 2021, marking the end of Debenhams as a brick-and-mortar retailer in Britain. Approximately 12,000 employees lost their jobs with the store closures. This collapse made Debenhams one of the most high-profile casualties in a broader department store crisis that also claimed BHS and House of Fraser. In January 2021, Boohoo Group, a British online fast fashion retailer, acquired the Debenhams brand and website for £55 million. And in April 2021, Boohoo launched Debenhams.com as a live e-commerce site. To Boohoo, Debenhams' 240-plus years of heritage and millions of loyal customers represented a valuable springboard into new product categories and customer segments. In the years since 2021, Debenhams has essentially become an online department store. Boohoo has leveraged Debenhams to sell a broad array of products beyond Boohoo's typical young fashion range, positioning Debenhams.com as a comprehensive shopping destination. In a statement, Boohoo outlined that the group would pivot to a marketplace model, using Debenhams to drive growth, with a vision for Debenhams to achieve a multi-billion-pound gross merchandise value as an online business. Debenhams' success as a pure-play online brand in the UK will ultimately depend on Boohoo's execution of the marketplace strategy, as well as the strength of the Debenhams brand in attracting online shoppers. However, the online retail sector is extremely competitive, and Boohoo faces intense competition not only from domestic rivals, but global platforms like Shein, Temu, and Zara. The resurrection of Debenhams in digital form will need continual adaptation, much as the department store had to reinvent itself many times in the past 2 centuries.